Well, a lot more happening in U.S. politics back home as well. So joining me now to discuss this and more is great friend and friend of the program, former Trump chief of staff and senior advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, we've had some breaking news here just a few hours ago. I want your thoughts on the news that broke late today about Donald Trump replacing the head of Homeland Security, the controversial Kristi Noem. Tell us about what's happened, why she's gone, and who's going to be replacing her.
James, it looks like the straw that broke the camel's back, the ultimate issue that led to Secretary Noem's departure, was her testimony yesterday to the Senate. She was asked by a Republican senator about a $200 million ad campaign, and he asked her specifically if the president had approved that. She said that the president had. And then apparently after the hearing, the senator called the president, and the president said that he remembered things differently. That's usually the end of a cabinet secretary when they're not on the same page as the president. Look, at either the cabinet secretary was lying or the president was lying. But in that battle, I know who loses. So she was replaced. She's replaced. I think it's effective March 31st. But she's replaced by another senator, Markwayne Mullen from Oklahoma, a close friend of the president, and he should be confirmed hopefully by the end of March.
And tell us, what do we know about Senator Mullen? He's a conservative. I saw him speaking earlier saying, he was definitively of the conservative school here. Do you think he's going to have any trouble getting through confirmation? Are the Democrats going to try and make noise? I know Hakeem Jeffries was saying, oh, well, we want a full change in policy, but it sounds like Trump is not changing policy, just personnel.
Yeah, the initial reaction was actually quite interesting to me. I know a lot of these folks. Markwayne and I served in the House together before he was in the Senate. And there's actually a couple senators, Democrat senators, that came out and said positive things about Markwayne and indicated a willingness to consider voting for him. I don't know if that will hold up because DHS, which of course is in charge of border security, and ICE, is probably the single most controversial agency right now in the federal government. I can't imagine how Democrats could support any Trump nominee for that position. But Markwayne is well-liked. I guess if I was going to tell you something interesting about him, Markwayne is a mixed martial arts champion. He's probably the toughest guy in the House or the Senate. He used to lead the workout routines in the morning when I was in the House with him, and I got news for you. I don't want to get in a fight with Markwayne Mullen.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see him out there maybe trying to handle some of those ICE protests. Personally, that could be quite amusing. But Mick, what does this do then in terms of his replacement in the Senate? Walk our viewers through what that's like. Is there a by-election? And does this put at all the Republicans' narrow lead in the Senate in jeopardy?
No, it doesn't. The House functions different than the Senate. The Senate functions differently than the House. In the Senate, the governor will make an appointment, and I think may make the appointment just as soon as Markwayne Mullen is confirmed. So what will happen is Markwayne will stay in the Senate until he is confirmed. I actually think technically he can vote for himself. I think Marco Rubio did. And then he will resign, and the Republican governor of Oklahoma will immediately name a replacement. Under the unusual rules of Oklahoma, that person then cannot run for a re-election. So there will be a new senator again in November. Curiously, and I know this wasn't your question, there's already chatter about Kristi Noem running for Senate in South Dakota. There's a fairly moderate centrist Republican there who's up for re-election this year. Kristi Noem was the former governor of South Dakota, and there are rumors that she is actually looking at filing to run against her fellow Republicans. So that'll be another fascinating wrinkle here as we go ahead.
That will be one to watch. We should keep an eye on that. But also when we were to Texas, too, speaking of the Senate, because Democrats think they may be in with a chance to win their first Senate seat out of Texas since 1980. But I'm a little confused about this one, Mick, because there was a hotly contested primary. The Democrats rejected Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a black woman, in favor of white guy James Tallarico, who they think is actually more moderate and therefore stands a better chance to win. But, Mick, the Democrats are running on this line that Tallarico is a Christian and a Presbyterian seminarian, that he's more electable. But have a look at this.
Did they teach you in Sunday school that Jesus Christ himself was a radical feminist? Before we go further, I want to acknowledge that our trans community needs abortion care too. Defending trans Texans is something we have to do every day at the state capitol.
Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front and a lock on the door. We can welcome immigrants who want to live the American dream. We can build a pathway to citizenship for those neighbors who have been here, making us richer and stronger.
Mick, I know I'm not the greatest Christian in the world, but I'm not sure he is a radical feminist, and I'm not a great scientist, but I'm not sure that trans people need abortion care. How is this all going to go down in Texas?
Yeah, I've only now recently seen that clip since he won the primary. I don't follow Texas politics that closely until you get to the general election. But my guess is a lot of other people will be seeing those clips in Texas for the next several months. Look, the Democrats have sort of this dream of taking over Texas in the same way the Republicans used to have that dream about Florida. Now, it worked in Florida, which is now a solidly Republican state. The Democrats, I think, are a long way here from turning Texas blue. Keep in mind, this is the same state that said Beto O'Rourke was the next, great hope of the Democrat Party, and now I think he's serving pizza someplace. I'm not sure what he's doing. So the press will go through this mantra about how James Tallarico is the future of the party in Texas now, he has a chance, etc. Here's the wrinkle. The wrinkle is that the Republicans don't have their candidate yet. They have two candidates, neither of whom won enough votes in the Republican primary on Tuesday night to get the nomination. So that's John Cornyn, the longtime sitting Republican senator, and Ken Paxton, the sitting Texas state attorney general. Both of them have their difficulties, as is evidenced by the fact that neither one of them could win outright in the primary. The general wisdom is that John Cornyn can beat Tallarico, but that Paxton, who's had a lot of difficulties in his private life, may struggle to run against Tallarico. So we'll know a little bit more about this race in May, but this is going to be a very, very close, very, very expensive race, probably the most expensive in the country. But my guess is that you're at least another cycle or two away from having Texas have to worry about turning blue.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mick, I heard one person say that they thought the Texas Democrats had gone from Beto to Beta with Tallarico here. But I want to move on finally to the to the war and to the midterms, which I think are two events that are going to kind of crash into each other here. And I know there's conventional wisdom that all of this conflict could harm Trump and the Republicans, but there was a fascinating poll on RealClearPolitics.com today, which revealed that at this point, at March 5th, in the second year of the second term, Donald Trump is actually more popular than Barack Obama was and more popular than George Bush was. And then there's been other polling which says that among Republicans, Donald Trump is more popular than ever. So in terms of how things are affecting, how global events are affecting Trump and the Republicans, not seeing a lot of movement in the needle here. What's your read, and how do you think this conflict that's ongoing in the Middle East is going to play out for the midterms?
It's too soon to tell, James. It's too soon. If this turns in to be another very, very successful, very strategic, very quick operation on the lines of what President Trump did to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran several months ago, along the lines, the same lines as what he did in Venezuela. If it turns out to be that, a quick win and just a demonstrable win, I think that actually helps his approval ratings. If we're still talking 7 months from now on the eve, or actually 6 now, I guess, on the eve of the midterms about what's going on in Iran, at that point, are there troops on the ground? That could be a different story. Keep in mind that the oil price has not yet hit the gasoline prices in this country. At least it just started to today. I think gas is up about 20 cents a the gallon, about 10 cents or 10%. That's a big deal here. There's a straight line between success and failure in November and the price of gasoline when it comes to being the incumbent party. So it's too soon to tell. But if we're still talking about this war in August, that could be a difficult time for the Republicans.
Mick, thanks so much. And I can report, sadly, that petrol prices here in Australia are already going up. So you've got that going for you there at least.